Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the Bike Walk Commission meeting for the month of November 2022. I'm Tanner Thompson. I'm the chair of the commission. We're going to kick things off with some time for public comment and for introductions of anybody who would like to introduce themselves. So as I usually do, I want to give preference in the public comment for people who haven't been here before, and then we'll move on to any member of the public that has comment. So if you would like to make a comment, address the commission, say hi, introduce yourself, please put your hand up. Azra, hi, welcome. Go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce yourself if you'd like and provide your comment.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the work that y'all do. I had a recent incident happen with my son. We live on Blue Mountain Road and West Rocks Road. West Rocks is a major artery, right, for bikers, walkers, and cars. He goes to West Rocks Middle School, which is just like 11 minutes of a walk up the road. So he and my other kids have always walked, and there's no sidewalk on the northbound side of the road. So they have to cross over to the southbound side of the road in order to get to school. The reason is obviously there's private property on the northbound side, but there's also an incline toward the street. So it's really not safe to walk on most of that part of West Rocks. So in order to get to a crosswalk, they would have to double or triple their walk time. And oh, there it is. Check it out. So because that is an issue and there's a lot of walkers up and down that road, many of our neighbors tend to stop anywhere along West Rocks Road to let kids cross. And so my child, this particular one, is in 8th grade. So he's been walking up and down to and from school for quite some time now. And so he is used to drivers doing that. So when one driver stopped, he started crossing the road and thought that the other driver was stopping, but that driver did not stop. And that is what caused his accident. Now, thankfully, he is okay. He's really, he recovered really well. But all the kids up and down on this stretch of road that have to cross at Blue Mountain or Esquire or Jarvis are kind of put into that situation where they assess when to cross. And a lot of the parents that go up and down this road, they know that it's tricky, so they try to help them. But in this case, the Good Samaritan, unfortunately, they didn't cause this issue, but it was a tricky situation gone bad. So I understand that the city did receive funding to remedy a lot of the bikeability and walkability up and down West Rocks Road, but they haven't made an actual plan yet. So I don't actually know if crosswalks are going to be part of the plan or not. And I was interested in making sure that those are part of the plan. And also, if possible, install temporary crosswalks in the interim period or give some kind of guidance for the rest of the time. I'm really kicking myself up and down the street because when my daughter started 4 years ago, I was gonna make a stink about it. And then I was like, well, I've been here. Plenty of people have had this problem. There's not a crosswalk here, so maybe it's not actually an issue, but it is an issue. Our city's growing, and that is one part of the issue, and it just makes sense. It's the other part of the issue. And now my kid got hit by a car, and now I'm like, you're a bad mother. And that's my story.
Well,
I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming and for sharing your story. For everybody else, I spoke with Azra earlier this week, and actually she was able to connect with Jim and some other people from the city over email. So this is not the first time that she's been able to get in contact with the city, but I did invite her to the meeting tonight so that she could share her story here and her son's story. So first of all, we're so glad that your son's okay. I had a conversation with Greg about our sidewalk strategy, or our crosswalk strategy, excuse me, like the practical barriers that we have to, like what it looks like in practice to put in a crosswalk. But I want to give Jim, if you want to talk about crosswalks now, or if you want to talk about it during your spot on the agenda, I'll leave that up to you.
No, sure. I can get this. And, I think, from the mom, I can't imagine the what your day was like when you got the news, right? It was that, I think we really looked at, when I joined the city along with my assistant, Kara Palella, we really looked heavily at where, prior transportation plans were and where some community involvement plans were, and looked at West Rocks as, from our viewpoint, really connecting a lot of neighborhoods and a long stretch of roadway that had schools that was an ideal, and really found that it was identified in a prior plan, and as a street for sidewalks. So we advocated very heavily and had a conversation with Congressman Himes. I have to, if nothing else, a call out to the delegation here in Norwalk. I've never met more, committed folks, because, we expressed to Congressman Himes that this has been, on a plan for a long period of time, and Congressman was able to get an earmark from federal government to look at designs. And we also got a state grant for crosswalks, right? So we are working through with them right now the process for the city to acquire the funds in advance of the city actually going through the process of acquiring funds. We're starting the process of design, which would include a community meeting to hear about this. So this will not be the only time that you get to voice this, and we certainly want to hear. But we're going to look to get sidewalks. Ideally, I'd like sidewalks on both sides. I don't know if we're going to have the funding to get sidewalks on both sides, but we're certainly going to look at what we can get. I think the other thing, regardless of whether there's sidewalks on the street or not, we really need to connect the side streets with networks. So we are planning. We do have a grant that's specifically. A state grant that's specifically for the crosswalk sections. So those will be ADA compliant ramps, and in instances, where they are available, we will, are relevant, we'll look at RRFBs, which have been effective. But we
What does that mean?
so they're rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So they have a light pattern that, when pressed, really highlights a pedestrian as at the crosswalk, right?
Those are fantastic.
Yeah, so we're looking at, we've installed a few of them, but I think, quite honestly, we need to install more, right? For people, because the issue of you saying, what are they? That's what we need to get more people that actually know what we're talking about, and more that'll happen as we start to implement them. But we also did host, the city hosted an FHWA, so the Federal Highway Association was here for a training session on pedestrian safety last week. So we're really, we are working very diligently to build a city that is, pedestrian friendly and actually can get you to move safely. We've recently the board has recently approved, our process to move forward to adopt complete streets legislation and a complete streets design manual. And that is, really, from many instances, from your perspective, how are we going to build our streets in a safe manner, and have them equitable for all modes of transportation. But also it's our gateway to Vision Zero, which is our ultimate plan, right? We don't want to talk about Vision Zero. We want to achieve Vision Zero. And, we are making those steps to do this. So, I can tell you that, yes, we will have sidewalks on the plan. I'm sorry, crosswalks on the plan for West Rocks. We think that there needs to be, multiple crossings to get you there. We're working with DPW and to really look at, their next section of paving on how those, there are a few pinch points that is preventing us from having a, continuous bike lane. We are very much looking to have, sidewalks along this corridor as well as a continuous bike lane, really making the corridor much more pedestrian friendly. We're looking at reducing some of the width where the width is too wide and reducing it to where it's, reducing it to where it's not wide enough, or reducing it where it's too wide now and increasing it where it's not wide enough to get continuous bike lanes and a sidewalk. But some of those are moving telephone poles. We're having those early conversations with the utility companies to do that. And we are starting the process of, we started the process and have chosen a consultant that we're working with on the design. We're actually out now with, the survey work so that we understand the grades that we have to meet. So it is a process that is started. And we are very much committed to this corridor.
That's really good to hear. Do you have any insight on temporary crosswalks?
So I think, really so there's a couple of things. One, we can't really have a temporary crosswalk because any crosswalk that we marked has to be ADA compliant, right? So for the ADA compliance, we'd actually have to build the ADA ramps, and then we really need to have a full plan about what we're doing to make sure that the investment we put in there is they're in the right place for the time. But also, when with both of these coming from an external funding source, they require the full plan in order for us to get the reimbursement. And then additionally, really, what we knew and what we heard coming out of the pedestrian safety meeting is, crosswalks that aren't really well planned are more dangerous than not having a crosswalk at all. So we are very much committed to not doing a piecemeal approach, but really looking at a holistic approach. And I can only assure you that, the process is in place for West Rocks to make that improvement. We started it last year with some, reduction in travel lanes and I do know that, the utilities had done some pavement restoration in a portion of West Rocks, and I know that it was paved. Well, it was marked this at some point in time this weekend, because I know that we were up there today and noticed that it was marked. So we have a portion of it that has long been overdue for marking. We had been really on with the utilities to get those markings in place. In that instance, they didn't restore what was there, but we were able to put together a plan to get that. But from a crosswalk perspective, it has to be a complete and comprehensive plan that includes ADA accessible crosswalks.
I see. I have one last question. I don't want to take a lot of time, but the legality of crossing of these pedestrians crossing from the side of West Rocks over to Blue Mountain Road or Jarvis or Esquire, what is the legality for the pedestrians?
What do you mean the legality?
Is it illegal for them to cross there?
No, it's not. No, it's not illegal. So under the state of Connecticut, any intersection, is whether marked or unmarked is a viable crosswalk.
Okay, my husband was concerned that we might face some liability from the driver.
No, not at all. So under the state of Connecticut's ruling on crosswalks, any intersection is a legal crosswalk, whether marked or unmarked.
I can expand upon that a little bit, Jim. So as read and for anybody else following along at home, to use this intersection as an example, under Connecticut law, the the pedestrian walkway as extended into the intersection is considered a crosswalk, whether or not it's marked. So if it's marked crosswalk, but if it's not, it's still considered an unmarked crosswalk. And that's true even if there's not actually a sidewalk on the road. So for example, on Blue Mountain Road here, the side of the road, the edge of the road is considered the pedestrian walkway. And if you extend that through the intersection straight, then that is considered an unmarked crosswalk. And that's true on both sides of the street. So if your kid was crossing from the edge of the road here across, that's considered a crosswalk. And under Connecticut law, if a pedestrian is in the crosswalk, or if they are on the side of the road indicating that they're going to enter the crosswalk, then they have the right of way. Even outside of that, though, a pedestrian is legally allowed to cross as long as they yield the right of way to the vehicles. That is true unless you're between two signalized intersections. And I want to give a shout out to Jim, because the only reason that I know this in such detail is because of the training that he mentioned that was this week from the Federal Highway Administration. And I'm going to touch on that later, but shout out to Jim for making that happen. Does that all make sense, Ezra?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Of course. If I can find it, I think I can dig up some references to those rules. Obviously, there's the actual text of the state law, but I think that I can probably find some more digestible, like a web page where it's presented in a way that's digestible, so you can understand what the law is saying.
I just have one comment that no drivers or pedestrians know about this.
That's a very fair critique. The state of Connecticut has a campaign called Watch For Me CT. And actually, I just, while Jim was describing that, I found their website. I was hoping that that would provide a good explanation. But this is the campaign that the state recently rolled out to try and do better at educating the public about pedestrian, basically the legality of crossing and how drivers need to watch for pedestrians. So I'm not going to take a ton of time during our meeting today to go into this because I'm not super familiar with it, but I do know that it exists and that it's pretty new, and that's what the state is doing to try and address that.
Yeah, and Tanner, just to highlight that, I think the law forcing the vehicles to yield right of way is new as of, Jim might know better than me, but I feel like it was either last October or in the spring sometime, whenever the legislative session was. So that very
it was recent.
Changed.
Yeah,
You're right, it's October, Colin.
Well, Ezra, thanks again, like I said, for coming to our meeting and for telling your story and raising your absolutely valid concerns. We share those concerns about pedestrian safety, and we're working to address that in Norwalk.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. I really appreciate all the time that you guys give. If it's okay, I'm going to stick around and.
Of course. Thanks again. Do you mind putting your hand down though, unless you do have another comment? So with that, we'll open it up to other members of the public. Anybody else, whether you've been here before or not, who wants to make a comment, and then we'll move on to our agenda. All right. Thanks again, Ezra. The first thing on our agenda, I believe, if I can just find it here, is Jim Travers, who has already talked about crosswalks. But Jim, for those who don't know him, is the Director of Transportation, Mobility, and Parking for the city. And he's got some time to talk about the, I think, high-level strategy of TMP. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, how are you? Thank you, and thank you, everyone. I think we very much appreciate all the time that Greg dedicates to do this. And Garrett and I were talking about how we would spend additional time on this, to attend meetings, every once in a while, just because we think it's important. But I think that I think I reminded myself on the importance of this recently, right? So I think for those of you, excuse me, who know me, I'm pretty honest and transparent person, or try to be. But in honesty and transparency, I would be remiss if I didn't say, like, there was a recent post that the Bike Walk Commission had done regarding East Avenue that was, quite honestly, a little hurtful to me. And after what I investigate, felt it, and looked at it a little bit more, it really just brought into light saying like, I think that where I'm better suited is really explaining just the amount of projects and overall investment that the department has been working on, not really looking at the things past, but from East Avenue, I recognize this as a challenge a while ago, right? And I did put into the capital request, and it didn't get funded. And I had said I'll put it into a capital request again, right? But I do think it's dangerous to go out there with a post that says we're 100%, in support of additional signals when there are requirements that the government puts upon us to do signals. And I really just thought that rather than the one, and where I believe it is an issue, right? But we're really looking at a holistic approach to fixing things, and really not doing piecemeals and not creating things that are one-offs, but really where we're going to make a difference. So I just wanted to do a high-level overview of really where we are as a department. I think we've had the past 18 months have been, in my view, successful in moving a number of things forward that I'm not going to get into, but I'm going to get into things that we're really working on now that are moving the bar. First and foremost is our transportation master plan. Excuse me. We took upon this, during the pandemic, so it has been, difficult to have meetings that were in person, which is really where I'd like it to be. But we are having one of the final meetings on December 7th. And it's going to be 6:30 to 8:30 in City Hall in person, because I think it's really important that we talk about what the plan is, right? And because this has been, while there is elements of the transportation master plan that are very specific, right? And I think the highlight, there are the sidewalks on West Rocks are highlighted in there, right? It is really more about the philosophy and giving the tools for us to design our transportation system for the next decade, right? In addition to the transportation master plan, last month or the month before, time goes by, sometimes slow or fast, right? We were able to successfully move forward Complete Streets, the board to adopt Complete Streets legislation and Complete Streets design manual. And I'm really excited about this because, I've done this in 2 other municipalities. And we will be the 16th city in the state to have adopted Complete Streets legislation. And we are going to be the community that invests the most amount of money of any of those municipalities in actually moving this forward, right? And when I had a conversation with the administration about why we need to make this investment, it was really about, this isn't about just creating legislation and a design manual, but we really need to make sure that, from every member of city staff to community participation in the process, that people understand where we are, that we make a commitment to what it is, and that we start to build a city, that's going to be equitable for everyone, and bring everyone on board. So that process has started, and we have contracted with FHI Studio. We had interviews with the number of consultants that participated in the process. They have by far given a fantastic presentation. I've had the opportunity to work with them on a number of projects. I think there is no better firm set to bring us through. And then equally, they are the firm that has worked with us on the transportation master plan. So a really great transition from that to bringing things into reality. Addition to that, we are also taking those steps for moving the city forward into a Vision Zero plan, right? And we need to have complete streets adopted before that's going to happen, but it doesn't prevent us from moving it forward, right? But there are people that have talked about Vision Zero, right? And we don't want to talk about Vision Zero. I think everyone in my department, wants to achieve Vision Zero. And I know that this is very much been a directive from the mayor, who has wanted this for a long time. But the greatest part of that is really how we look at data, right? And we are creating a data repository that is not going to be mimicked by any other municipality. We're looking at data. We have created algorithms that are really weighing the intersections and the crash locations, in an equal format, so that when we make investments, they're going to be made, we're going to be able to back it up what we are. We're going to be able to really measure. We're going to be able to really look at predictive crash analysis. We're going to be able to look at, mitigation strategies that we could take in order to do these. We're going to be looking at, how the, how speed data is there, really getting an average of speed that's through there. We're working with a company that's out of the UK that's able to acquire data that's in almost about up to 10% of the vehicles that are out there. So we get, some of those locations where we have rapid acceleration and deceleration. So give us indications that, in those areas where it happens frequently, that, we have maybe a geometry issue to look at. We have sometimes a signal issue, but we'll be able to look at that. We'll be able to look at speed that's occurring. We're also looking at the repository to be, we are a growing city, right? We are the first or second, there's a debate, the fastest growing municipality in the state. But regardless, we're a very fast growing municipality. And for every development that comes through, we require the developers to do a traffic impact analysis, and I think Colin could attest to that, since he knows that. We harp very much on this, and where we're gathering the data, looking at it as its relationship to the development, looking at those mitigation strategies, and then on a shelf, right? So we don't want to have it on a shelf. We want, this is an opportunity to really gather these things, keep it in a repository, and have it, really guide us in the decision-making. But, we started this process, and Esri is our GIS database. So that's, we look at GIS is really looking at the property lines, but really, we're guiding the city. But we're looking at GIS also to be the repository of all of this information and this database. And in our conversations with Esri, as we're working on building this and their understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, we were invited to Palm Springs to speak at their their international annual meeting. We were unfortunately cut at the last minute because their attendance wasn't as what they thought it was, and we were kind of like one of the last attendees. We were very honored to be there, but quite honestly, I'm relieved that we didn't have to be there early on. I would rather deliver something, but we're hearing that what we're what we're working on is pretty impressive, and is going to is going to really even challenge some of the other major cities that are out there that are looking at managing data. Right. When I came here, I talked to the administration, about, I wanted to, we wanted to really measure data, right? My philosophy is, what is it measured? Is it managed? Right. And so we got a traffic analyst, and, we hired someone. We continue to work with them. I think he's great. I think we're on the precipice of really creating something pretty amazing. That's extremely time consuming, right? So those are kind of high level things of what we're doing in philosophy, but also what's happening in the background is, I also did attend, I think, the very first bike walk meeting that I attended when I joined here. I was told about the intersection at Gregory at 5th. And, there is a pseudo roundabout there today, right? And I was told about the challenges of that intersection, the lack of pedestrian amenities, the lack of cycling amenities, and the need to do something. And we were successful to get that funding into this year's budget to design that. So we are about to, the procurement process is time consuming, right? But we will look at this intersection in its totality. So the intersection at Gregory at Fifth there, and the intersection at Marvin at Calf Pasture, we're going to look at this holistically. But I strongly believe that, the Gregory at Fifth intersection will be a peanut-shaped roundabout, right? And then how we work at Marvin at Calf Pasture, we need to do it, but we're going to be doing that through some series of community engagement. But even absent of that, we will be finished design, and we have written a LOTSIP grant to fund this afterwards. All right. But you'll see right here, severe lack of pedestrian amenities here, right? I think, and we have yielding inside the roundabout, which is not in any manual, right? Anywhere. So I think this one is a huge opportunity for us. So we are about to, we're looking at now at picking that date for that community meeting, for that to happen. We had our first stakeholder meeting for Seaview Avenue. So Seaview Avenue was another intersection or series that was talked to me. And then when I had done some work on it, or research, found that there was design funds in there several years ago that didn't move, right? So we are we're looking, so right now we had our first stakeholder meeting for Seaview, and we are about to hold our community meeting for Seaview tomorrow. In fact, we are, or Greg is, checking out a space that, so that we could have it nearby to welcome the community in, to really hear some of the challenges that we have there. It's a challenge because it's seasonally a challenging intersection or section of road, but it's also part of our NRVT, right? And it's not conducive to what we're asking it to be, and thinking as a lot of opportunities. So that's another one that will be in design, and we'll finish it. We have we continue to work with every partner to make things happen, and we work with ConnDOT as on the walk bridge, and the walk bridge itself is a little bit behind schedule, as well as most things are that require a lot of parts these days with the supply chain issue, right? But they're also dealing with some other challenges of advancing that. It's still going to happen, but they're looking at redirecting some of the work. So one of the things that they were looking at and just approached us on is, Cemetery Circle was one of the last projects that that they were going to be doing, but because they're delayed in the other one, they're moving. We just got notification that they're going to move it up, and their job is really to replace what they disrupt as is, right? So they don't typically get into a situation of building anything different than what is there, because a couple of things. One, they can't take on the liability of once they get in there and something is different than what it is and that they weren't planned for, and then their project expenses go up. But also, there's things that what about community meetings? There is a participation process. So we did go into the East Norwalk TOD study, found some improvements that were noted in there, used that as a baseline, and we are in communication with ConnDOT to do improvements to this, to fix some of the things and adopt a lot of that was in there. But one of the things that we really wanted to get to, in addition to that I don't think was noted for, was really sidewalks along the cemetery as well. Because if you get stuck there, right? I mean, we have a cemetery that's an historic cemetery that there's no way to get into it, right? It has a gate down there, but God forbid, like how you're going to get in there. So we see, we continue to work many instances on how this intersection and series of intersections are safer. Addition, we just finished the survey for the Yankee Doodle Garage. So the Yankee Doodle Garage facade will be done. That was something that was introduced to me very early on, about the condition of the garage and people's safety, and where we are, right? So I threw in the parking, but I also want to talk about we've installed a bioswale in Webster Lot to deal with some of the water retention issues that are there, particularly at low tide. There's concerns I have with the final design of that, so we actually have had the contractor redesign it, and this is a new overlay. Wow, that's there. Really? Is this Google?
Yeah, you can thank Google Maps for that.
Wow. Okay.
You're referring
The
to
funny thing about it is on the other side of 50 Washington, it's not a new aerial. Okay.
right here.
How do you have this? This isn't, you're cheating.
Tanner's
Oh.
leaning on the scales a little bit, I think.
Yeah,
No,
I just looked at this before I left the office today because we're hosting a holiday party. That's cheating. Okay.
Scout's honor here. I am not using my corporate laptop. I'm using my personal laptop. I am on google.com/maps. Nothing fancy here. It's just Google Maps.
All right. I just looked at it before I left the office an hour ago. We were having a discussion, but
I don't know.
okay.
Maybe the satellite just flew over half an hour ago.
All right. So the bioswales, we have some concerns, so we're doing that one. We're also in construction with the Riverside Drive phase of the NRBT, and trying to advance that. We did end up having a problem with the contractor that has delayed the project, but that has been resolved, and as of this week, the contractor is back on the job. So we're moving forward with that. We're moving forward with wrapping up phase 3 of our traffic signals, which are we have the ones on East Avenue, we have the one at France at Cross, we have the one at Wilton at there as well. We're also about to embark in phase 4 traffic signals, which is also going to include so phase 4 is going to include the adaptive as well. So I'm sorry. So phase 4 is new signal modernization, and then we also are doing a grant for advancing more adaptive signals in the city. So when the mall
Jim,
came in,
do you mind pausing for a sec? You've highlighted tons of stuff, and I'm just a little bit lost. Are you talking about East Avenue now?
So the signals on East Avenue are phase 3, right? And then, so we're wrapping that one up. And then we are advancing, phase 4, which will be, which are going to be the signal at Main, at Cross there, and at Camp at Cross. We'll have those in that signal, in that grant as well. And then we're doing along the continuation of the West Avenue corridor would be adaptive signals that are going to tie into the adaptive signals that we got the mall to pay for when the mall came in. And then as we advance that, we're going to really start, so that advancement of adaptive signals, we were the first city in the state to bring that to Connecticut.
You mind defining?
We want to
adaptive
advance
signals?
that through what?
Do you mind defining adaptive signals? I can't even say I know what that is.
All right, so adaptive, the retiming of traffic signals, right? That it's going to be so we time traffic signals based on the number of vehicles that go through an intersection, right? So for example, when I was in Stamford, I retimed all of the city's traffic signals, right? So that is taking traffic counts at every signal, right? Going through analysis of timing, and say like we're going to allow 120-second max at this intersection. If it doesn't use it, it'll go down, right? But it's always going to be within the same parameters that we set initially.
Gotcha.
Right.
So an
But
adaptive
we're-
signal is just one that like uses sensors and adapts to the current state of the intersection?
Yeah, so what adaptive does is once we set in the initial algorithm to move traffic, then it's done on a camera basis, right? A sensor basis that's going to look at it. And when it sees ebbs and flows of traffic, it doesn't do it just for that one signal. It actually talks to the entire corridor and really starts to let instead of just a one-time, like it's what I did in Stanford and when I did retiming all the traffic signals, that was adaptive. Adaptive is the newest technology that can take over so that we don't have to time them. That was $1 million investment that we made in Stanford to do that, right? You won't have to do this again because it does. Yes, it counts its cars and it knows when it has a sense of when there's longer queues that it will that we would extend the green time on this one, and maybe on the main line, or we extend the queue on the side street based on where we're seeing traffic, right? So if there is, people complain like, oh, when we have an issue on 95, it brings gridlock, right? It actually helps to, we're never going to be able to withstand all the cars from the highway coming to local roads, but we'll be able to manage the ebbs and flows of traffic much more efficiently with adaptive than the old model of just timing.
Gotcha. So
Right.
when you say phase 3 and phase 4, can you just point out those are phases of what project? What's the name of the project?
So we called them that's what we call the project. So we've given the signal. So when we do signal projects, we call them in phases. So so phase 3 is what we're in currently. Phase 4 will be the next one, adaptive's that one. And then phase 5, we are looking at, so we will, we have had conversations with the transit district, and we're going to do bus priority along our corridor. So we're
Phases
working
of
with them.
upgrading the signals around the city.
So it'll be upgrading things. It'll also be putting a transmitter in the buses. So when the buses start to approach to an intersection, where there's routes for transit will be given the bus priority.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to getting to phase 5. I'm just making sure that like for everybody in the meeting that we're all on the same page about what this work represents, right? So
Yep.
so when you talk about phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, this is phases of citywide signal upgrades or just localized signal upgrades?
So it's citywide, but in phases, when we apply for these, they're apply for their grants and their emission mitigation grants. So they have to be in a sequence in order for us to prove that when we make this investment in new signals, that we're actually going to be decreasing idling and more efficiently moving cars to decrease emissions. So that's why they're phases, but they're just consider that just the project name, right? But and then within each phase we have a series of 2 to maybe 6 signals.
Gotcha. Yeah, the only reason I dig into that a little more is because that hasn't come up as much in our meetings. Greg has mostly been updating us on projects that are more specifically pedestrian and bike focused. So thanks for the detail. I want to give you time to give us updates on any other projects that are in flight, but I do want to just be cognizant of the time. We're about halfway into our meeting time already.
Okay. All right. So I think that's the point. So that we haven't even gotten through the projects that we're working on. Never mind the projects that we're planning. Right. So I think that was a little bit of really what my discussion was like. I applaud you for taking efforts of just saying like, we should work on it. But I think from a commission standpoint I think we should really look at how we can make the process better. And I want to make sure that, you were educated on what we're working on so that you could see that there is work being done, right? But things have to get done in order for it to happen, right? Because, I didn't even hit on Wall Street, which is a $20 million project, right? Which
Yeah, and thankfully Greg has kept us up to speed on Wall Street in our previous meetings, as far as I know. I don't know what I don't know. But it seems like at a high level, what you're trying to say is that you want to make sure that the Bike Walk Commission understands all the different projects that TMP is working on, that we get an appreciation not only for like the amount of work that you have, but also the necessary prerequisites to certain kinds of work. Is that all true so far?
So yes, so yeah, I think and I'm not looking for appreciation, but more a recognition of just like there are, and there's a process, right? And we have to look at that process. And I think really when we look at the database, we're kind of looking that that's going to be the driving force of making decisions, right? That we look at where are we going to make the biggest impact? Because I can tell you that I can work on I can walk every mile of every street that we have and come up with a project. I am not shy of looking for opportunities, right? But we need to start making sure those opportunities, like we have to align the opportunities where we see investment opportunities, where we see where there are grant opportunities, right? So because we look at every grant that's out there, and we look at how does it meet the requirements, right? Whether it is a smart grant that we're looking to introduce new smart technologies, right? Or when we look at reconnecting, when we did the Reconnecting Communities grant, that it met those priorities, or we did a Safe Streets for All $26 million grant that needed to meet those priorities. The grants are very specific about what they want to fund, right? We have to look at for those opportunities, but it doesn't happen without a plan. Like we're able to pick things up because, I stand on the shoulders of giants for those who stood before me and created plans, right? Because the plans give us the backbone. That's why the Transportation Master Plan is so important to me, because it gives us a backbone to be able to solidify that there's a reason to make the investment in the city and it's already been recognized, right? So, I think when I talk about East Avenue, we need a plan, right? We just can't do, it would be irresponsible for us just to start making, investments without understanding what is a larger plan of this and making sure that what we measure is impacted, right? Before everything that we work on, we're going and collecting traffic data. We're going and collecting accident data, and we're measuring that to afterwards. When we do 10-foot travel lanes on roads, we're measuring it afterwards so that we have this proven mechanism that the investments we make are yielding positive results.
Well, thanks. So first of all, we appreciate that. We definitely see that. I guess I can't perfectly speak for the entire commission, so I'm gonna try. I want to respond to one thing, and then I'm going to open it up to other commissioners so they can ask you, respond and ask follow-up questions. At about 7 p.m. is when I think we need to move on to the next item on the agenda. So let's give this a shot. So first of all, I acknowledge that ultimately in the long run, we're going to make the most impact by focusing on long-term projects where we have a large-scale plan, where we collect the data. And when I say we, it's you guys, right? It's TMP doing this work. This is not our day job. And that's going to give you and the city of Norwalk the most long-term impact and solve the fundamental problem, which is that the streets and the sidewalks and other infrastructure has been underfunded for decades in Norwalk. So addressing like that at its root is absolutely important, and we see that. I think, and I'm attempting to speak for some people that have expressed this to me, so I'll do my best. I think where people feel like we're falling short is that in the effort to focus on long-term problems, that we're leaving a lot of really low-hanging fruit that's low cost and short-term that could also be done in the interim. We're not professionals. Some of us have some professional experience that's relevant, but I think that we see examples from other cities. I want to share, for example, this from Stamford, right? And I see a familiar name right here. This is an example of like a very low cost, very temporary installation. I don't know what sort of long-term plan this fits into, if any. I don't know how much of a study was done before it was done, but for those of you who can't see or who want a little bit of background, this is an intersection. It looks like a three-way stop in Stamford that is much wider than it looks like it needs to be in order to accommodate a lane of car traffic in each direction. And so some of the asphalt has been delineated with paint, with flexi posts, and then with planters to make sure that space is preserved and doesn't turn into just a wider car lane. So I think this is an example of what a lot of people on the commission in the community would like to see more of in Norwalk, not because they want that at the expense of progress on long-term solutions and long-term large-scale plans, but because people see this as like so much more doable in the short term. So does that make sense?
It does. It also should be noted that I left that plan. Garrett and I worked on that plan in Stanford for those improvements. So, you know,
And I
when they
suspected
look
that you might have been involved.
when they look like short-term solutions, there's really a long-term plan behind it. You know, it's you know, so you know, we left that plan behind that we worked with Fuss and O'Neill to design that really took, you know, that aligned the intersection much better. So there, you know, so when I just caution you, when you think that there's short-term solutions, you know, there's still often a lot of work that goes behind those.
So for the group, can you give us just a general idea of like a project like this that looks like it's low cost and that it's very short term? What does that look like in terms of lead time? Like how long did this actually take?
Well, I think
Like roughly.
so I think, you know, so I left Stanford a year and a half or 3 months, a year and 3/4 ago, right? You know, it was a project that we had studied for, you know, several months, you know, before then, maybe up to a year before then. You know, I think there was really, you know, this was, I think what they did here is a short-term solution to see if what we designed was going to function, right? And, you know, I can tell you that I know it's going to function, right? You know, so you know, but it's also, like, I understand your desire to short term, but I still think you're missing the narrative when I just ran through a list that I didn't even get through a quarter of what we're working on. And we have one of the smallest departments in the city, right? So yes, we could work on small projects, but then we're never going to get the larger projects done.
So there really
Like,
is a trade-off here. I'm mostly I'm trying to facilitate a discussion here so that people who think that this is stuff like this is the obvious solution can understand that there is a trade-off.
Yeah, I think there's a trade-off, but there's also, you know, a lot of work that goes behind it to make sure that what we're designing is going to be correct. Like, yeah, like they did it, but I mean, quite honestly, I left a plan, right? You know, so
Yeah.
and props to them for doing it. I think I'm very happy that it was done, right? It was a challenging intersection, right?
All right, we got questions. Let's get through them. I think I saw Colin and then Christine and then Judd. So go ahead, Colin, first.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Jim, I think, I don't know that you're characterizing our short-term comments quite correctly or internalizing them. I think we recognize that there's work that goes in behind them, but what we're seeing in other places, in Tanner's example in Stanford is probably a good example. You know, recognizing that you've done background work there. I've seen intersections in Manhattan go through the full iteration. I think there's one by the Apple Store downtown in like Tribeca or the Meatpacking District where I've literally been there over time, and you can see it in Google as it evolves from you know, delineators and in granite blocks to, you know, a more permanent installation with like replaced delineators, and now there's like larger planters and some seating put out, and then it goes even further. And you know, probably 5 years ago, they really, you know, redid the whole street, and it's like you've got the Belgian block pavers and like the clean strip of granite blocks that are long and smooth so that the bike lane can continue through the pavers without being as choppy as cobblestone. And the whole intersection just changed, but that was a decade-long process. So I think we're wondering why we can't long-term plan and implement to get where we need to go, implement where we need to get to go in a less expensive manner so that we can get that quicker, right? And then as you're chasing grants, yeah, I think that's the one I'm talking about, right? There's like,
yeah, it's 14th and 9th.
Yeah, so you can actually scroll through the history and see how that plaza to the right develops over time and how the intersections changed. And you know, it's not that we want you to look at with like a short-term lens and be like, well, what can we do here right now? Look at the big picture like you're doing, and then say, what can we do now to increase people's level of comfort, or to test the idea, and like you said, they're doing in Stanford, test the functionality, because maybe there are things that change your opinion as you see it function, because reality is different than a computer most times. So I just, at least my perspective, I think some degree of low cost implementation would be welcome, at least from the commission, in limited aspects. I realize some places you have to go much more full scale, but to the woman's question earlier about her son and the crosswalks, it's like, a lot of places can put in seemingly some delineators and improve crosswalks relatively easily with some minimal protection for pedestrians that just really does, choke the intersection down, or at least the crossing, and provide that level of safety. And that's not something that requires necessarily ADA curb ramps, depending on the crossing that stuff's being put in. I don't think so. I'll stop at that, but I hope that made sense.
Do you want to respond quickly, and then we'll get to the other questions?
So, again, I think that we are looking at where we could do short term. We diligently work with the folks at DPW. Anytime that there is a road paving, we look at those opportunities to change the road. We look at those opportunities to increase the bike lanes, right? We're sitting here, a year and a half later, doubling the amount of bike lanes that we had in the city. So to say that I'm not looking at short-term solutions with just what we can do with paint isn't a fair representation of what the department is doing.
Yeah, no, sorry.
We might not choke down an intersection, but we really design every single street that they go after. We look at every single street.
And Jim, just to chime in real quick too, and I know we briefly discussed this a few months back, but Jim we've worked on this, putting together an RFP as well for concrete services to kind of hit those smaller concrete projects, which we're going to be releasing over the next month or so. So that, an intersection that needs a couple ADA ramps, we don't have to wait for DPW to put those ramps in, or we don't have to wait for, large infrastructure projects, so that we can hit those, those $25,000, $50,000 jobs in certain locations and touch upon those. Obviously our funds are, limited within a certain window, but we're going to be addressing those moving forward. So I think some of those shorter term projects are going to be addressed as a result of this contract, just so we don't have to put out to bid every time we need a ramp done. We have to get 3 quotes, put out an RFP. This RFP will have more of an on-call concrete contractor that will kind of take care of those items going forward, which will definitely quicken the process for smaller items such as that.
Yeah, we had no mechanism to do that before.
So I do understand that, and I did want to point out, Jim, that I was driving around this weekend, or like the previous weekend, in Silvermine Avenue and Bartlett on 123. I noticed that you most definitely had an influence on that project there, where the intersections got a little bit realigned as part of that traffic study. So I mean, congratulations, thank you. That I think was much needed, and that's that's clearly where you're taking those opportunities as they present themselves, and that's not necessarily. I didn't mean to get you thinking that we don't think you're doing anything, because I think we all realize that there's been a tremendous amount of change in a watershed at City Hall since you came on board. And I saw the striping on West Rocks the other day for the bike lane, and also on Philo Street by the golf course. So that's all going in, and I mean, to see that.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, and
phenomenal.
So Colin, I do want to let you know, like, we are looking at where we can make short-term interim solutions. Like, I think so Philo is a great example. Philo was not on the list when we looked at the early list, right? DPW made some changes, and they were going to be milling and paving Philo, right? We dropped every single thing that we were working on, right? Because we had one opportunity to be out there, right? What could we do with paint, right? And then we marked it out with paint. Greg did a fantastic job of what we could do. But then what we also looked at that where we said, yeah, we have a once in a lifetime opportunity to do this, right? So we have a couple of points in the initial design that the bike lane was lost, right? Because we just didn't have the width of the road, and what we did was we held internal meetings and really looked at Greg's plan and advocated to where we are able to get slight widening that actually gets us, connected bike lanes, right? And then we are looking at how that Willow Street is really going to connect to Fox Run when we do Fox Run, right? But also, like when you look at West Rocks, we have a section of West Rocks that has, that we were able to get that in, right? And quite honestly, right, that was a utility work project, right, that we had no knowledge of, right? I think we got notification from you guys, right? That there was milling paving, and then we took that and we said, here's our opportunity. So we designed something that wasn't planned. So we have a short-term solution that we get into place, but then that also leads to, when DPW does the rest of the corridor, what does that look like for us? Because at this point in time, we've now gotten a larger connected portion, and we're looking at growing that over time, right? So it is those, right? And I think we'll look at, what we're doing. Like, I think this is a really interesting thing. Like, I think, we have some paint there that does some short-term solutions, but I mean, quite honestly, I think a longer-term solution is some type of reconfiguration of Fox Run at Willow there. I don't think it functions very well. I don't like it, right? So we have paint as a temporary measure there, but the longer-term measure is to really make the investment to fix something, right? But we have been challenged, there was a philosophy or a practice in the city that we did not cross all legs of an intersection, right? We crossed one section on a main road and one section on a side street, right? And that's not really what we see pedestrians doing, right? So we are not, we've changed that practice. We not only changed it in writing, we changed it, we're going back. I think, Greg does bring a valid point. Like, we are, like, there's another great example, right? What if you're on the other side? Well, screw you. You're going to have to figure out to cross those other ones that have no way to cross, right?
Not even present here. It's just completely blank. I'm sure.
Where are you?
This is right in front of Stu Leonard's.
All right. So this is also important, right? So right in front of Stu Leonard's, so this goes
Sorry,
to.
I didn't mean to sidetrack us. We are already way behind, so maybe it's best if we move on to our next.
So I'll say one thing. Our design review of Stu Leonard's project resulted in $360,000 of improvements to have every leg of this intersection improved before they could actually build their building or build their enhancement. So
nice. Cool. Thanks, Colin.
But
Thanks,
I
Jim.
get you, Colin. And
Christine, go ahead.
Hi, I'll be really quick. First of all, Azra, I'm glad you're here, and I'm sorry about your son. That's terrible. And I hope that you join us again and become an advocate, and are inspired to maybe think about being a commissioner. So we have a couple positions I know that are open.
We have one.
Jim, it's funny because I was gonna come on tonight and give praise. I don't want to be bundled in the we, because I don't know what the criticism was or the comment, but I was on my bike this weekend and I noticed that the Fitch striping was done with Strawberry Hill, and that really, there was a car right behind me and they knew they were slowing, and there was clear mark that I could proceed under the bridge, and it was amazing, and I thank you for that, because that was brought up, a couple years ago, and it's been done. The other thing I noticed as a driver this week was I think it's the Tracy School, the school on Camp Street. Is that Tracy? But
Yep.
that as a driver, it's all cleared out now, and that's thanks to all the work. And Greg is amazing. I mean, he's here every meeting. I mean, and I work in a school. I know what it's like to work in a municipality, right? You're short-staffed, you're doing the work of many. So we're lucky to have you, and it's been amazing. And there's definitely, I see improvements.
So what are you in one of the Norwalk schools, Christine?
I'm at AIT in Stanford. It's an interdistrict magnet school. We have kids from Norwalk. It's a high school. So
Yep, I know. Very familiar with it.
Yeah, right on High Ridge Road. So Anyway, now just quickly, since I do have a couple airtime minutes here, that you were talking about how you have to design these and it takes a lot of care. I did have a little concern. It's not a criticism because it's a beautiful crosswalk down on William Street. They're behind the school, Nathan Hale. And it's the big lights go on and the kids can cross, right? And you know William Street, and is it William? Yeah, William Street. But I was a little concerning because I crossed there too, and it looks like it's on a little bit of a slope and it's almost like a blind curve. And it scares me because it's not one where the cars have to stop, but the blinking lights go on both sides and kids can cross, but it's very quick stop for the ones coming down the hill. So it's just a comment. I don't want to discuss that, just a comment. And then lastly, I'm just going to put in a plug for the intersection on Main Street. The produce market brings a lot of people over there. There's a lot of businesses. There's the Walgreens over there. And hopefully that intersection is going to get looked at because it's very sketchy and it's becoming very populated with pedestrians crossing and there's no place to cross there. Thank you for the time. And thank you again for your work. And I appreciate it. And Greg too.
So Greg, did you get the intersection, the RRFB or the flasher that she was talking about?
I did, yeah, on William Street, yep.
All right, so let's take a look at
We'll
that
have to take a-
tomorrow.
yep.
I'm not familiar with that one, Christine, so we'll take a look at that. And then Main Street, hit me one more time on where we were there, because Tanner, you went to West Avenue, so you confused me.
Yeah, I think that's Main Ave, right, Christine?
Main Ave. Yeah, Tanner knows. We
By
looked at
like-
it
by
before
Broad
with the,
Street?
yep. Produce market, there's the Walgreens there. There's
I
the
would do it, sorry.
cupcake place, the cupcake. Everyone's going across the street to get those great
Oh, yeah,
cupcakes.
Forever, it's right, Forever Sweet, that shopping center.
Oh,
I'm-
yeah, my favorite cupcake store, right? That's what you need to say. Tell me where the sweets are and I know where we are, right? There is
I see,
we
sorry.
continue to position the state for that, but yeah, I won't take up the time, but yes, it's on our radar. I don't want to get yelled at by Tanner again.
Jim, we love having you here. We're so glad you're here. But
But
we
that
do
one
wanna
is,
make sure
that
everybody
one
gets
is
on
online
something.
and, we are working with the state for crossings up there as well.
All right, so I'm gonna move on to other agenda items, just to summarize, just so that we're all on the same page about what we gotta get through. So that I can get you all home on time. Emily's got
Sorry to
quick-
take up your time.
No, so I legitimately, Jim, I think that it's been very useful to have you here. And I think that we would love to have you back anytime. Whenever you have time to join our meetings, you're always welcome. And I think I consider it time well used. So
We
don't worry,
we will be back. I'm gonna sign off unless you needed me for anything else. I'm gonna have a little dinner. I'm starving.
do it.
All right.
Thanks for coming.
All right. Have a good one.
So here's what we got to get through. We've got updates on the website from Emily, who has been hard at work on both our social media and our website and our newsletter. Emily's taken on a ton. Thank you, Emily. We've got even more reports about projects from TMP from Greg. And I've got several things in a chair's report that I'm going to just bust through right now. I wrote some letters of support from all the grants that we talked about in our last meeting. I don't know if any of those have, if the grants have been awarded or if decisions have been made, but I did write those. I attended a meeting of some city council subcommittee where I made a comment about electric bikes in the city fleet. The city of Madison, Wisconsin is piloting them. And so I made a comment about that and sent an email. Hopefully that turns into something 5 or 10 years from now. We'll see. Crosswalk strategy, we already covered. Meetings and event calendar. Ben, a friend of the commission right here, has created a Google Calendar that has not only our meetings on it, but also other city meetings that are relevant to biking and walking. For example, a couple subcommittees of the Common Council, Planning and Zoning, the Norwalk River Valley Trail Board meeting, People Friendly Stamford, which is an advocacy group in Stamford, I think is on there. Ben, anything else you want to say about that? Any obvious meetings I forgot?
I don't think so.
I guess any
It's-
one-off meetings, like for example, I'm sure Greg's gonna announce it, but I'll pre-announce it. I think you did it last time. On November 14th, there's the Wall Street meeting that's at the library. So that's on the calendar, for example. So the purpose of this is so that anybody who's interested, if you use Google Calendar, you can add it to your calendar, and then those meetings just show up. You don't have to go to all of them, obviously, but that way we can be more coordinated about when the meetings are. Next thing is Sustainable
Can-
Street Happy Hour.
How
Julia,
do
go
we
ahead.
access that calendar?
So that's a work in progress. It's going to be, Emily has added it to the draft of the new website. It's also on, I've added it to, if you go to walknorwalk.org, bikenorwalk.org also goes here. This is just a link tree that Emily and I set up, and it's right here, calendar, events and relevant meetings, but it'll also be on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Sustainable Streets Happy Hour. Yeah, Emily and I have been working, trying to find a venue for our next happy hour. We haven't nailed it down, unfortunately. We were hoping to get something before Thanksgiving, but because we haven't gotten responses, that may or may not happen. Definitely wanting to do one by the end of the year, though, so stay tuned for that. The strategic plan working group, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to keep that going. Admittedly, I've had a lot on my plate in terms of leading initiatives. If there's somebody else who wants to take on and lead the strategic plan working group, I would welcome that. But in the meantime, if there's nobody, I will continue to keep that on my plate. Same with the Bike Friendly Communities Working Group. We haven't met since the last meeting to make progress on the application. I think it's important that we do. So again, if somebody wants to lead that effort to like meet regularly and start filling that out, I am open to volunteers. Book purchasing. This is another thing where admittedly I haven't made any progress. We voted last month to purchase a dozen copies of Confessions of a Recovering Engineer from a local bookshop. I'm willing to do that when I get to it, but if somebody wants to take that on, that would be appreciated. And I think that's it for Chair's report. Any questions? All right, we will move on. Emily, you're next.
Okay. Can I share my screen so that I can
Yes,
show
as
the,
far as I know you can.
okay. Oop. Okay. So I have been working with Jalea on updates to the commissioner page, and just for reference, it is this page on the Norwalk site. She came to us a couple of months ago saying if we wanted to remove our 2019-2020 strategic plan and some of the links down here, and we thought this would be a good opportunity to go in and make changes, such as adding the calendar that we've created, adding our new social links, and updating some of our pieces here, specifically this graphic. And I think the most efficient way to do this, to allow people who want to contribute and help make these updates the opportunity to give input, is I've taken all of the copy from the web page and put it in this Google Doc. And I'm going to go in, and because I don't want to say anything that's not correct and I want others to be able to review this, I'm going to track changes in this Google Doc. And I just have a running list here of the things that we want to do. And I can share this document with other commissioners and volunteers that are interested in giving input in these changes to the web page. And I'm hoping to get this done by December, by our next meeting. So if there is anyone interested in reviewing this or making changes to the web page, or has input on what they want the graphic to look like, reach out to me. I'll leave my email in the chat, I guess. Is that the best way to reach me? I think, yeah. But
Emily, I have emails of everybody who got a panelist invite to this meeting. And I haven't noticed anybody who joined today who wasn't a panelist. If I am wrong, please let me know. But you can, at the very least, you just send it, or I have the link. I'll just send it out to everybody who got an invite to this meeting.
Okay, perfect.
And to be specific, do you want people to edit directly? Do you want them to leave comments, or do you want them to email you comments?
I'll set it where it's going to track changes, but yeah, I'd rather have it all get done in this Google Doc. That way, any changes that I'm making or anyone else is making is tracked here, and so we can see how it changes from the original.
Okay, so people are welcome. So why don't you do suggesting? Perfect. So people are welcome to suggest edits.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
Any other reports on website, social media, newsletter?
That's it for now.
Okay, thanks. We just have two things left. We have Greg's TMP report, and then we're approving the minutes from November. So I think we're gonna do all right. Go ahead, Greg.
All right, so obviously Jim hit on a lot of things, so I'm just gonna keep it to the items that we've been talking about. Community connectivity grant, working with the striping vendor to finish installing the necessary lines on 4 Point Street and 136. I don't know if anyone's been out there lately, but the state DOT has gone out there and put their long line portion striping in. So we will be following right behind them to put in our portion. The green pavement and the red pavement as part of the final plan won't be done until next year, as recommended by the contractor. We talked about this a month and a half ago with them, but they were, it's a different material, so they suggested that we wait until next year to install it. So we will be putting in the bike symbols, we will be putting in the bike box for now without the green pavement. And we'll be doing it in a water base so that next year we can go back in and install the green pavement and the rest of and the red pavement as well, for the new bus stop will be located as well. The new striping already delineates traffic much better and will cause much less confusion as well going through that intersection. So we'll see the benefits from that. And then the majority of the striping for the connectivity grant will be done next year. There's, a few roadways that are planned to be repaved next year as part of it. So we've been coordinating with DPW on that. So we already have the striping plan in place for that. So once the paving is done on those roadways, we'll be able to hit that. And, so we'll be planning on, getting a majority of the striping completed next year, which will add about over 7 miles worth of bike lanes to the city. So it'll be a significant increase as well. And a north, south and east, west route. We also have awarded the contract for the signage as well. We put out to bid solicitation last month, and we awarded the construction or the installation of the roadway signage to be included along this route. It's a significant amount of signage, so we went out outside the city to have it installed. So they'll be looking to install those over the winter time. Just because, as long as the ground is warm enough, they can install the signage. So we'll be seeing some signage being put up over the winter time for the connectivity grant. So that's another major portion. Then obviously the sidewalk portion over on Hunter's Lane has been completed as well, which is the third component of the community connectivity grant. Highland Avenue sidewalk project is near completion. They should be finishing up next few weeks by the end of the month at the latest. So that's been very exciting for us, especially it's been about 3 years in the making to put it, to have it installed. So to have it near completion, we're very pleased with it. And then next year, DPW plans to repave the section of Highland Avenue, and that's where we'll finish the striping portion for Highland Ave. So the sidewalks look great. I don't know if anyone's been out there, but definitely a major difference walking along it now as opposed to 6 months ago, which I did very regularly in doing this project. So a much better difference, and I definitely see a lot more people walking Highland Avenue. So with the new sidewalk, so very pleased with that.
Greg, I was actually able to run on those sidewalks during the Sono Half Marathon last month. They weren't completely done at that point, so that leads me to the question of, do you know when they'll be completely done?
They should be done within the next 2 to 3 weeks, they said.
Okay.
We spoke to them late last week with the holiday on Veterans Day coming up this week. They're going to be able to finish up the portion in front of Brian McMahon. So they've been holding off on that, and then they'll be putting in the race crosswalk as well, and then just finishing up the curbing and sidewalks and some of the smaller detail work on the perimeter on the easterly curbside. So very pleased once this is all completed and a major safe routes to school project. It'll bring many benefits to this area. Sono train station garage parking area. I'm sure Tanner shared the picture with all of you. The bike racks have been installed along with the repair station. So they have been installed. We're going to be putting together a press announcement and putting together we'll little meeting to kind of put it out there that's officially open. We're still waiting on the bike wrap around the column on the right-hand side of the screen there. So it's going to be a bike parking wrap.
Oh, a bike wrap.
What's that?
I heard bike rack and I was like, there's already 10 of them.
Bike wrap, sorry, bike wrap.
The vinyl wrap around.
Yeah, it's a vinyl wrap. Yep. So I have bike parking wrap around the around that pole, so it'll be visible from pretty far away, so that everyone can see it. So yes, we'll have a press announcement to officially open it. And then in addition, also, and Tanner, if I can just share my screen, if you don't mind.
Of course. Go ahead.
The parking authority has also provided and installed 2 new bike racks at the East Norwalk train station on the New Haven bound side. So let me share this. So they have provided and installed 2 racks. One is an artistic rack, a train, and the other one is a Helix style rack right behind it. It actually looks really cool actually when you're out there. It really kind of pops. So we're very happy with the installation of the new bike rack there as well. And obviously fits the theme of the area and the train station. So we're very pleased with that as well.
That looks pretty cool, Greg.
It is very cool. Yeah,
It
Go
looks
ahead, Ben.
even better in real life.
it does.
It's
Yeah.
great.
Yep. No, really, when you pull in, you can see it from East Avenue even, it really pops. Especially when the sun hits it. So we're very pleased with how it turned out. And, like you guys put together a working group, and this is, these are the kind of racks that we want to put out around the rest of the city as well, that fit the theme.
Ben's got a question. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, yeah. go ahead.
Yeah, just to comment, just to kind of agree that they look really awesome. I got to see them in person a couple of days ago. And I also noticed that they're like directly under like a lamp at night.
Yes.
And it's like really well lit. It's like the brightest spot in the entire parking lot. I got off the train at after dark a couple of days ago, and so the security also is good. I feel like that's good. Good
Especially
choice.
this time of year, that's going to be common for a lot of people getting off the train at that time. So
Yeah, for sure. I was also going to ask super fast, is there like a camera or anything at the Sono station racks? I didn't know if that was part of the deal.
I don't believe there is, but I would have to find that out. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay,
There
no
might be
worries.
some within the area, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Greg, I've actually had other people ask me that as well. I think in particular, people bringing, higher value bikes that otherwise, in the past would not have even considered locking them up at the station are now considering locking them up at the station, but still, want to know that there's some additional theft deterrents.
I'll have to check.
Yes, James.
Check and see somebody with a little more know-all than I do about the garage. So I'll let you know. And while we're on the East Norwalk train station, I just wanted to provide an update real quick on some information we found out today from the Walk Bridge group, who's kind of overseeing the construction. They're going to be on the New York bound side. The racks are going to be relocated temporarily over the next couple of weeks because they're going to be doing some construction utility work where they are now. So they're going to be relocated near the train station building along the east as the Walk Bridge project advancement progresses. So the Walk Bridge is going to be putting out communication on their social media. So I don't know if anyone follows that, but they're going to be, they put out an announcement to us today, late this afternoon, that they're going to be moving those racks either later tonight or tomorrow. So just to give everybody a heads up on that. And where they're going to be moving them. And like I said, it's only for temporary as they needed to gain access to perform some utility work. And then obviously we talked the roadway striping update before. West Rocks obviously was striped. Another road was Scribner Avenue, which got striped. We just need to put the bike symbols in and the signage. Obviously Philo Street, and then Glover Avenue as well, and then 4 Point Street as well. So by the end of the year, and cumulative, we should have about 5.5 miles of additional bike lanes that were installed just this year alone. And then next year, obviously, with the connectivity grant racks, that will add another 7+ miles on top of it. So we are accumulating bike lanes, at a pretty fast pace. Which we're very happy about. So we're actively going out and striping wherever feasible to get bike lanes in and where we could get those 10-foot travel lanes to accommodate that. And as Jim alluded to, even where there are some pitch points in the road, we're looking to kind of move that curb to gain that 30 feet as well. So and one more, sorry. One more thing is just the Wall Street Design Charrette will be held next Monday night. 5 to 8. Sorry, my dog is not happy right now. And that will be at the Norwalk Public Library. And then Seaview Avenue, the first public meeting will be held the second week of December. We'll provide a date, time, and location once it's all finalized and we get the location locked in. So we will keep you all posted on all those things. That's
Greg,
it.
Jim also mentioned a meeting on the 7th of December. That was for the transportation. master
That's for the
plan.
master plan.
Okay,
That's
so
for the
that's,
master plan.
that's first week of December, second week of December, Seaview Ave.
Second week, yeah, so that's how we set it up so that you guys don't have to attend, or the public doesn't have to attend 2 meetings in 1 week on top of all the other meetings that are going on at night, on a monthly basis as well. So we're trying to, not double up on meetings, so that, you don't have to pick and choose which one to go to.
We appreciate it. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, just about the master plan meeting. Do you guys have like a flyer or a web page or something?
Yes, there is,
I was looking at the TMP page on the Norwalk website and I couldn't find anything, but
I will.
that doesn't mean it's not there.
I will get it for you and I'll send it to, yeah, so it's on the Norwalk Tomorrow site.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
this-
Yeah, it's
this
on the
website
Norwalk
doesn't look
Tomorrow
like it's
site, yeah.
Updated very often. It doesn't have any info about that meeting, for example.
Yeah, it's the meeting is, we're just getting it kind of locked in right now. So, because it's just, it's still about a month out or so.
Yeah.
But we'll have communication out with the flyer and everything at least 2 weeks before the meeting.
Cool. Yeah, that Google Calendar that we have going, I always like to put a link to like every meeting that there is
Right.
in there so that someone can just find it real easy.
Yeah, but the Norwalk Tomorrow page is your best, most up-to-date website. And then once we get a flyer together, we'll send it so you can post that one as well.
Cool. Thanks.
All right.
Greg, relevant question to the master plan. On the website here, there's a link to the survey, and this is a survey that's been up for a couple of years now. Jim's asked us to distribute it before, and we've included it in some of our emails. Are you still, or is the consultant still looking at new additions to this survey?
I don't believe so, because they've taken a lot of comments and they've kind of advanced it. I feel like more at the public meeting, you can provide more input there. I'm not sure if they're going to be taking more comments. If you haven't, delved out, some comments already, if you have any additional ones.
Yeah, I mean, there's always new people getting involved in
Right.
the work we do, so.
I mean, you can try, you can see if, you could post it. But I feel like the meeting in a month from now, you'll be also be able to voice, provide input as well during that portion.
Gotcha. Well, I would encourage you all to show up to that meeting and the other ones that TMP is putting on as well. But the transportation master plan, kind of like Jim was describing earlier, like it's focused on solving the long-term problems and identifying the biggest long-term problems.
And just for reference to the West Rocks corridor, the only, one of the major components why we got that funding was because the previous master plan done 10 years ago called for such improvements along the corridor.
Gotcha.
So that's what we were able to reference back to, because if we didn't have that planning document with West Rocks on that plan, it would have been very difficult to get that sort of funding.
Gotcha. Okay, anything else from TMP, Greg?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Well, we did, I think, remarkably well on terms of time. We still got to approve the minutes. I can pull them up here really quick, but as per usual, I have read the minutes and there were just a couple corrections that I sent to Delene, but otherwise they looked great. I would entertain a motion to approve them. Christine, thank you. Emily looks like a second. All in favor? Great. I think that passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Last chance, if you want to bring up anything else before we close the meeting. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Ooh, sorry, real fast.
Again, go ahead.
Greg, you can also send us a link for whatever webpage comes up for Seaview too, right?
Yeah, right now, we don't have a page for it. But
Yeah,
once
I
we
know
have
the
a
date's not
flyer-
set yet, but once it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah, once we have a flyer announcement, you'll be able to see it, and it will be all over the city's social media pages as well. So but we'll forward it to you guys all separately.
cool. Yeah,
Greg,
looking forward to it.
Whenever you do send us info, will you make sure, if you send it to me, also CC Emily, because she's doing all the social media newsletter stuff?
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
Cool. Colin, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I did just want to relay to Greg again, just reiterate that I was driving around, I did see, all the fresh striping and the pavement, and it's really commendable what you guys are doing and where you're picking those opportunities. So just keep up the good work. And I was really pleasantly surprised to see the interventions on Silver Mine and Bartlett at 123, because that's
Yeah.
something that actually came up when we were still a task force. And long before you were involved and long before Jim was here, when we had discussed that corridor, when that planning for those signal upgrades, I think, was coming from the state. And it was really up in the air as to whether or not anything was going to get done there. So I'm very pleased that Jim and you and the department revisited that area and were able to do something positive. I think it's just shows where you guys are headed in Jim's long-term vision. So
No, we appreciate that, Colin. And, there's still a lot of work to be done. And like Jim said, he can't walk on any road and say nothing has to be done. So we're just trying to get as much done as possible.
I want to echo Colin. Actually, I was at a friend's house on Scribner Ave. I think I told Greg this already, but I was at a friend's house on Scribner Ave a few weeks ago, and we were playing a game. It was like 11 p.m. and this truck drives by that's striping an edge line on the road, something that Scribner has never had in the time that I've lived here. And my friends who live in that house, they have little kids, and they complain to me about how cars fly down that road. And I'm like, an edge line's coming. Greg's told me an edge line is coming. So it finally came. It was like Christmas. It was like fresh fallen snow on Christmas, the bright white edge line. I actually went out and measured it right after the truck went by, and it's a 10-foot lane. So thanks again, TMP, for the 10-foot lanes. Anyway, that's all. Anybody want to move to adjourn? Thanks, Emily. Second. Thanks, Colin and Judd. All in favor? Looks like we lost Christine already, so that's unanimous. Thanks, everybody, for coming. See you next month, first Monday in December. Till then, have a good one.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.